T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Good.
You ready for do more in the future? Trap Talk podcasts?
Yes.
Man.
Only Trap Talk. Exclusive.
Yes.
Exclusive. Oh.
So stop calling us.
Rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the crop, gotta love it or not. I'm hot from the hop to the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with everybody, we do it. Everybody, we do it. Do it. Do it. Do it. Rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with
Woo! Back in town, baby. What is good, everybody? Your boy MJ up in the building. You are now tapped into the coolest reptile podcast in the world. If this is your first time tapping in, do your boy a favor, hit that subscribe button. Don't be a Gilligan. Don't be that Bob Smith who always comes back to this damn podcast and never subscribe. Don't be that person. Be a better person than that. Do it for the guest. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that notification bell. I'm like 10 subscribers away from hitting 5K organically. Never paid for shit. Let's go. Let's get myself to that 5K subscriber mark. And I appreciate all my subscribers. Appreciate all my repeat watchers, all my trappers, everyone in the early birds right there. I see you guys in the building. I'll get to you guys in just a second, but you guys know how we get things cracking here on this podcast for the freshest and bestest rodents delivered to your doorstep. Only one place to go, and that's Cold Blooded Cafe. www.coldbloodedcafe.com. Check them out on Instagram. Shout out to the Cold Blooded Cafe family. $30 flat rate shipping straight to your pad. That's the way to go. Shout out to John and Alex over at Sim Container, one of the best in the game when it comes to monitor care and practices. And they also invented such an amazing piece of equipment for your eggs to hatch in, and it's called a sim container. Less steps when it comes to using a sim. If it's a sim, it's a win. Shout out to John, shout out to Alex, shout out to Steven and Ashley over at Focus Cube Habitats, PVC built enclosures based out of Texas. Check them out on Instagram. Big things popping. Shout out to Jesse and the entire Freedom Breeder crew. My Freedom Breeder racks are now ready. Fuck yeah. Now I got to get them shipped. Woo! Shout out to you, Jesse. I appreciate you. Cannot wait to get my racks here. Super excited. And yeah, man, if you have a Freedom Breeder rack, you know exactly where I'm coming out with this. They are the best. And then speaking of the best, one of the best for sure in the ball python game, hands down, the big battle, always evolving pythons. I just found out that me and him have some events that we're attending together. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I'm super excited to be on the same docket as my man Miguel when it comes to certain events this year. And that's what I'm talking about. This guy motivates me on all levels. So if you guys want to tap into the ball python game, if you want to know how to get some of the best stuff in the ball python game, best person to follow, hands down, always evolving pythons on Instagram. Shout out to my boy Miguel. Shout out to Tina, Jesse, the entire AEP family. You guys are doing big things for quite a while. So thank you so much for everything you've done. Shout out to my boy Alan over Amazing Bases over at Amazing Basins. Really passionate, really dialed in with such an amazing species. I like to call the basins the Ferrari of snakes. Something my homie Andrew told me a while ago, and it stuck with me. So yes, if you want to learn more about these amazing basins, go down to my boy's Instagram account and go check them out. If you really want to tap in and see what you could do to become maybe one of the owner of a basin that he produces, best way to do that is to tap into his Patreon account. So shout out to my boy Alan. Thank you for everything you do. And shout out to my boy Blake Stewart Design. If you would like to elevate your brand, if you would like to grow in this business or in any business of your own, you need to market yourself. You need to know how to market yourself, and it's all about your brand. So shout out to my boy Blake Stewart, who's helped plenty of people already in the industry. And if you want to be one of those, go reach out to him. Go see what he can do. Shout out to Blake Stewart. Shout out to Mark Bailey over at Mark Bailey Reptiles. Triple OG, triple. You know what I mean? Go to Morph Market, see what production he has available. And if you have a Mark Bailey production, you already know this guy produces nothing but fire, nothing but that quality. So shout out to Mark Bailey. Appreciate your support. You're definitely a day one for sure. And then shout out to Rami over at the Reptile Super Show, #1 show on the West Coast by far. Please, guys, do what you got to do to go out to a Reptile Super Show. It will change your life along with a NARBC show. Shout out to Brian Potter. Shout out to Bob Ashley. These three guys all together leading the industry by throwing such an amazing show that brings all of us herpers together. We get to collaborate. We get to chop it up. I met my boy Alex. Actually, I met my boy Alex at RepTech, which we'll talk about a little bit, but I've also seen Alex at shows. Alex is no stranger at shows. So yeah, you guys, if you want to get more out of this, if you're looking to grow out of this, then go to a show. Don't be fucking one of those weirdos that just like to keep yourself hidden and then act all cool on the internet. You know what I'm saying? You got to eventually show your face. I get it. Not everyone's good looking, all right? But you got to show your face. You got to mingle. You got to chop it up. That's the only way you're really going to go somewhere in this fucking industry. And you can mark my words straight up. Shout out to Phil Goss over at US ARC. Guys, please go down to the link. Let's fight you. Let's help US ARC fight for our animal rights. I mean, he's helping us keep our animal rights. Let's help him out, man. Let's go. Go down the link below. Subscribe to the US ARC YouTube channel. Shout out to Garrett Hartle for getting that going. I feel like it's moving pretty good. And then also become a member. Go down to the US ARC website and become a member today. And let's go and let's bash these PETA weirdos to the fucking ground and make them go away. Sorry, I haven't slept much. Pretty groggy from the flights, but I'm okay. Anyways, if you guys want to see what I got going on personally, if you want to be like, oh, MJ, all you do is talk, or do you got anything else? Motherfucker, I got a lot going on. Go to my Instagram, mjexoticscartal with an A, not an E. Go get your boy. Go follow your boy and go see what I have going on with ball pythons, green tree pythons. I shouldn't have said that. God damn it. Super dwarf, reticulated pythons for sure. I got boas. I got a lot going on, man. I'm very passionate about the monitors. As you know, I created my own segment for Sundays dedicated to lizards and monitors. So go check me out on Instagram, mjexoticscartal. Go follow the Trap Talk with MJ podcast Instagram as well. Shout out to my Twitch viewers. I also want to say for the first time, shout out to my Facebook viewers. Hey, you guys watch. I appreciate it. I know I talk shit about Facebook all the time, but if you're on Facebook watching this, thank you. I appreciate you so much. If you'd like to support this channel, more than a subscription, more than a view, more than a like, all that stuff, you could send me any donation you'd like to PayPal at exoticscartal with an A, not an E, or you could simply set a super chat. If you have a question from my boy Alex, you want to get a question out to him, and you want to make sure I ask it, send me a super chat. All super chats get sent over to US ARC. That's how I do things. And then shout out to my Patreon family. The Snake Trap Sessions Patreon family is growing by the day. If you want to become more in depth, if you want to get VIP behind the scene type information with this podcast and see what I got going on, because guess what? This thing's only going to be blowing up more. Go down to the link below. Come join the Trap Talk Patreon family. Come meet all my trappers. We have a Discord that you join. As soon as you become a trapper, official trapper, you become a part of the Discord where you tap in with over 100 trappers in the building, talking about so many different things. Anything reptile related, just general life related type shit, man. Investments, everything, man. So bottom line, if you want to get more out of this and you feel like the homies you have, or if you don't have homies, or you're just like, dude, I need a fucking some sort of connection, go down to the link below. If you're not a Gilligan, Bob Smith weirdo, come join the family, and we would love to have you, man. This family's growing by the day, and we would love to have more trappers join the Patreon family. So go down the link and come join us. Come fuck with us. Shout out to my Patreon members. I love you guys so much. What is good with the early birds? Who's here for my boy Alex? Who's ready for a good show? I am. Shout out to my homie Silver Cash 86. Cut first clutch Friday 13th, and they're all crawled out, bro. Nice, congrats, bro. Hope the pizza's going good today. Chantel, Pacific Rim Serpents, what is good? Trap Talk family member, Team Zoo Dreams in the building. And we have an episode on New Breed on the Block tomorrow. So make sure you go down the link and set your reminder because it's going down with me and the homegirl Chantel. New Breed on the Block, 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. I hope you're ready, Chantel. We're about to blow it up. Shout out to the homie Kevin Fours, Pythons, Trap Talk family member all day, every day. The homie Sunshine State, Sulfurs, what is good? Thanks for tapping in. The homie Eric's Morph Factory, what is good? Thanks for tapping in. Clutch, Trap Talk Patreon family member all day, every day. Thanks for tapping in, Clutch. I appreciate you so much. Lizard Man, what is good? Trap Talk family member all day, every day. Thanks for tapping in. Wise Guy, let's see what's going on with this. Here we go. What's going on? What's going on? Jeez, Wise Guy, what is good? Thanks for tapping in, Wise Guy. Josh M. I will definitely take a dab for your boy. Hi, wife. My wife is here. Hey, can we just shout out to my wife real quick? You know, I was 5 days away, and I'm still here to get a podcast in. My boy Alex. She's not that type. She just lets me work. That's my fucking wife right there. I love her to death. I will see you after this podcast, 100%. Let's see. 1776 Exotics, the homie Big Mike, Trap Talk, family member all day, every day. Thanks for tapping in. The homie Mason Johnson, heavy Trap Talk, family member all day, every day. I hope you get your shirt soon. Sent that out last week. Jay Hendo, what is good? Player, Trap Talk, family member all day, every day. Jessica Ward, what is good? Thanks for tapping in. Carrera? I hope I said that right. Exotics, Reptiles, what is good? Big Dabs, we're doing Big Dabs for sure. Royal Bama, Reptiles, what is good? Thanks for tapping in. The homie Dylan, these nuts, also had an amazing podcast. Just left this guy. I was in Seattle to do a podcast in person, my boy Dylan, which the homegirl Chantel sponsored. So this is awesome. Good to have my boy Dylan in the building. The homie Jaffe Exotics, what is good? The homie Julio Fulio in the building. Trap Talk family member all day. By the way, Dylan's a heavy Trap Talk family member all day, every day. Patreon member, I appreciate you so much. Florida born Exotics, Trap Talk family member all day, every day. Thanks for tapping in, player. DCI Exotics, what is good? Thanks for tapping in. The homie Sean Perry. Faded off a good one last night. I'm just kidding. What's good, Sean? Thanks for tapping in. Sound Service, give him a follow. Darren S. What is good? And we're gonna end it respectfully with my boy Tasty Till. I feel like I was a UFC fighter and I just got hit a lot. My words are fucked up right now. Tasty Hill Herp in the building. Respect. Thanks for being a longtime Trap supporter. What is good, guys? It's Sunday, Holy Litter Session. Let's get this show on the road because I'm excited, man. I met this kid, Alex. I only call him a kid because I am a lot older than him, but I'm sure he's older. I think he's 21 now, I think. Steven is. Same age. Either way, we'll figure it out. My boy Alex, man. Met him at RepTech. Very, I don't want to say he's shy, but like he's not like flamboyant, you know what I mean? But he knows a lot. And whenever I find that someone's very humble and they know a lot of information, I like people like that because that means that those are people you can get info from. They just don't like to talk. So anyways, we got my boy Alex, who's very knowledgeable. He's been tapped into this industry for quite a while. Even though he's young, he knows a lot. He's been doing a lot, and he's about to chop it up with us right now on Trap Talk. So here we have my homie Alex Myers tapping in from Chicago.
Hi, thanks for having me on, MJ.
Chicago, right?
Yes, I'm from Chicago.
Dude, Chicago's a scary area, and when I meet people like you and Steven from like Chirac, it's like, wow, it's not that bad. You know, there's some normal kids out there.
Yeah, you just got to stay away from the sketchy areas, but for the most part, it's a pretty decent place.
How you doing, Alex? Thanks for being here tonight.
I am. I'm not gonna lie. I'm stressed. It's the finals week of my college semester, so between organizing time to sit and chat about lizards, which for me is definitely a break compared to hitting the books. I am just. I'm trying to be at 10 million places at once, but at the same time, trying to make sure I stay down to earth in the process.
So if you don't mind, kind of break down people what it is you do right now that involves your progression in life, as far as what's related to animals and what's related to school.
So pretty much full-time college student. It's just what I do. And what I have a strong passion for is just conservation, the natural world. I love reptiles and amphibians. That's just always been a big portion of my life. But the reality is as much as I love keeping and working with reptiles and amphibians, working at a zoo just is not really the job for me. And so that's why with my work with Chinese water dragons, for instance, I try to keep that more as like on a hobby sector, somewhat of a small business level. I definitely profit from it. But for the most part, what I am aiming for with my degree is to go into some work with the Department of Natural Resources, depending on which state I end up moving to after I graduate in about a year and a half. So like I said, I love conservation. I fish a lot. I've got family that hunts. I really want to conserve and protect the natural environment, while at the same time working, as we all know, you highlighted USART, working with the hobbyists and obviously the political figures to make this industry substantial and around 30 years from now. I wish I could say I've been able to work with everything that I've wanted to work with, and that is so far from the truth. And right now, we as a hobby are in a very scary I mean, I say hobby, no, we are a reptile industry. We are so much larger than people give us credit for. And the idea that I'm trying to, I guess, convey is that we need more open-minded people based on science, arguably working in a natural resource position. It's just some of the policies going into effect, if these were truly coming from scientists understanding basic reptile biology, these laws wouldn't be going through in the first place, which kind of hurts me a little bit because I support the DNR, I support wildlife organizations, but then when they throw this stuff at us, I kind of start to step back like, whoa, I thought you guys stood for something else. And that's, again, why I'm seeking that out as a profession, is I would like to say maybe one day, 3-4 years from now, I'll be the one deciding, listen, I know how these animals act, and I'm going to write a law that actually works for the benefit of conservation and the reptile industry, which, again, ironically, the reptile industry typically has nothing to do with conservation associated with it. So I don't know why they too bash heads. But what did I say? I'm not working for the DNR yet.
I can tell you one thing. If that time comes where you're making laws and it's like someone happens to say, it was that podcast I saw, on Trap Talk with MJ, I better get a law made after my name, motherfucker. You feel me? I'm not kidding, Alex. We better make this. I'm just kidding.
The MJ clause?
Yeah. Meaning you could transport marijuana and reptiles in the same package. That would be my law.
Ship your reptiles and buds.
All right, listen, I want to dig deeper on this mindset of yours because it's awesome, bro. Shout out to what Silver Cash said in the chats, because I feel like this is where we're at now, right now, zoo versus passion. Every kid, not every kid, my dream as a kid, especially when I would go to the zoo, is wanting to work with those animals. Ever since I was a kid, I dreamed it was either be a WWF superstar, motocross racer, or a zookeeper. Like, those were the three things I obsessed over every time. And then, I think all the way through high school, I wanted to work with animals until what happens when you leave high school? What you have to pay for shit. Responsibilities happen. How much money do you make in the zoo? You don't. You don't. It's basically you're basically turning your life over. Meaning, when I say life, I meaning like any potential of you being an entrepreneur, any potential of you making something on your own, you're giving it all to this zoo, and they're not going to pay you shit for it. And that's how, some people, I don't know. So let's kind of talk about how you got your foot into the zoo, what led up to that and whatnot, if you don't mind, because that's not easy to do. So
originally it actually started, I did a lot of volunteer work at the Wildlife Discovery Center in Lake Forest, Illinois. And to an extent, it was caring for captive animals, right? Giving guided tours, being a free zookeeper in a sense. And don't get me wrong, it was rewarding, and I learned a lot of my reptile husbandry skills and hands-on experience with that. But at the end of the day, that's just it. I was a volunteer. And then as somebody going through high school, needing to earn a little bit of side cash, I ended up switching over working for my local exotic pet shop, which ironically is deemed unprofessional by many zoological institutions, but yet they're the ones paying me, whereas the professional institutions expect me to do that work for free. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. Obviously, they got to figure out how to get people working with those animals to some extent. But at the end of the day, it's just working in that setting, again, for quite a few years. I did that from 2014 to around the start of 2017. It just didn't do it for me. And unfortunately, I'm not trying to down talk zoos. I'm not trying to down talk nature centers and professional institutions. They have a place. They're there to educate the public.
Right.
But for me, wanting to, I guess, do more with my life, and I'm not trying to say money is everything, but it kind of is to an extent. I saw more.
Alex, you don't have to pretend, bro. Like, and you have a great upcoming. You have good parents. Like, think about people who want to work with animals who don't have parents and don't have like any support, and they still try to make this happen. It's damn near impossible. But go ahead. Yeah. I just wanted to say that it is about the money, bro. And as much as as passionate as you are to want to make things right with these animals, you need money, bro. It comes down to money.
Exactly. And so that's where I then started to learn about, working with, say, your state Department of Natural Resources, where it is about animals, reptiles, in this case, say, Blanding's turtle. That's a native endangered species in Illinois, aquatic turtle. And so by working, say, with these more government-based organizations, there's a little bit better income. I'm still helping these animals in the long run, while at the same time, trying to, I guess, have a bigger cause than just picking up poop all day. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but for me, wanting to achieve that bigger mission of conservation, even captive animal welfare to an extent, I just can't do that being the guy caring for, say, a Boelen's python at a zoo. As rare as that is, at the end of the day, am I really doing anything? All I'm going to say, and I'm not a Boelen's guy by any means. That's just, an example that I know is like one of the holy grails.
You don't like Boelen's?
They're cool. I'm just not a huge snake person. But I guess for the sake of examples, what I'm trying to say is that, there's a reason they've been bred by hobbyists and not zoos. So what good am I really doing being a zookeeper, volunteering for free, caring for this rare snake if it's clearly not going to have any success?
So check this out. I just had I know what kind of person you are, Alex. I mean, not fully, right? But I only know so much of you. What I know of you is that, let's just say you made $100K picking up fucking zoo shit. Like, let's just say you made good money. Let's say there was good money in just picking up animal shit. I feel like that still wouldn't be enough for you. Like, I feel like you'd be like, dude, that's okay. And that's, you understand, some people with that just amount of money to get them by drives them. Like, they're like, I'm happy with this. And I feel like those are good zoo people. Like, those are good in zoo employees if you could still budget like that, whatever they make you, right? But for you, for Steven, we haven't even talked about how you met Steven yet, but you guys are met for so much more than what's even offered to you. Like I said, everyone would kill to just be around animals and work with animals, which you had that, and it still wasn't enough because you're meant for more. And not a lot of people, they don't get that, or they don't even want that. Like they rather just be like, hey, I'm happy picking up fucking elephant shit, and I'd rather never even own my own elephant. Me, I would be like, how can I own my own elephant? You know what I mean? Like, that's, or what can I do to create my own zoo? And I don't want to provide this no more. I want to do my own shit. And I feel like that's where you're at. And that's what this industry needs more than anything. People that want to innovate and do their own thing. And which we're going to tap in more about what, I don't want to get details about what you saw at the zoo, but, were there scenarios or situations at the zoo that you just weren't happy with, or did there, and not, you don't have to say the zoo, or just in any collection that you've seen. Have you been in situations, Alex, where you're just like, this isn't right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's all I'm going to say. Obviously nothing is perfect. Let me just put that out. Even like my own personal experience. If I were to tell you that I've done everything perfectly with my animals, well, I'm full. That's a lie. I've messed up just as much as the next guy. And I'll happily talk about that later on if you want, just so people can learn from my mistakes. But the point is, what sort of hit me is that a lot of these facilities that I would work at is that they would mess up, but it was sort of hush hush. A zoo would entrust them with this really rare animal and it wouldn't be quarantined. Like, the most basic foundational aspect of introducing a new animal into an established collection, arguably worth thousands of dollars. And you're like, oh no, it's fine because it came from another professional institution. So clearly it's going to be safe. You work with green trees. I assure you, if everybody had perfect green tree pythons, nidovirus wouldn't be around, right? But here we are today. All I'm saying is it separates the, not to sound, I guess, coincidental or figuratively, but the men from the boys. You gotta see who's serious about it and who's just trying to fit in and look cool.
Bro, I know you're not that old, but you've seen enough and you've hung out with probably a lot of experienced keepers to know that hush hush mentality came from the elite zookeepers. That shit started with people just don't say shit. You know what I mean? And that, other private keepers learned that from the zookeepers. And that's what happened when the old school mentality was keep everything under the table. Because guess what? Who's going to expose you? There's no internet. There's no fucking, but now what? You're fucked now. You have no choice but to come out and be like, listen, this is what happened. This is what it is, because it's going to catch up to you at some point. I don't care who you are. Look at all the big names now that are like getting lawsuits sent at them, and you know they still don't care, but they're getting fucking like they're old like maneuvers and hustles of fucking people over. Dude, it's out the window now, bro. Now you better find something else to do because it's all catching up because of the internet. So we're in a new generation now. That hush hush shit is done. Like it's not happening. I mean, you could hide it for so long, but bro, people share screenshots. It's like the rap game of people snitching on each other. You're not safe. I don't give a fuck who you think you're talking to, who's going to protect your information. They're going to give that shit up when the time comes. So it's in your best interest to stop being a piece of shit animal keeper. Or on top of that, stop fucking people over, because karma's a motherfucker. I'm just saying. And I'm just saying, I mean, you got to admit, Alex, the whole hush hush, people keeping things themselves, it's all kind of going away now, right? Like, look how much Nido's talked about now. Look how much, so many things, crypto, so many things that's happened to people's collections. It's openly being discussed. And it was never like that before.
You're absolutely right. I think it's sort of, I don't remember the saying fully, but everybody's your friend until they need help, right? They're all going to smile and wave, and they're going to support you. And the moment you do something they don't like, or they do something they know you're not going to like, they start turning on you. They're literally just going to eat each other, which is sad, you know, but it is what it is.
But humans are fucked up. They don't give a fuck. And, you know, the big example I hold to my heart is the BARCZYK situation. On like, so many people went to him for things, and as soon as they were done with what they needed with him, or as soon as he blew up to another level, that all he did was get dirt thrown on his name. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know what's true or not, but I know who Brian as a person is. I've hung out with him. I don't think there's not one evil, rotten bone in that guy's body. That guy's genuine. He's a fucking soulful person, and he's talked to me as a real person. He's talked shit about people, so I know he's not just faking it. Like we've like straight just, you know, vented to each other, so I know he's a real person. But I just also know that when you give too much, you can't expect much or expect anything. It's a dangerous world out there, Alex, and I feel like the biggest people that have the biggest advantage in this game are people like you and Steven, who know what they know, but you guys still have so much youth. Like, you guys are so young, bro. But Alex, I don't look at you as how old are you, 22, 21?
Yeah, 21.
I don't think
22 this fall.
I mean, you hella look like you're 17. Don't get me wrong. Like, you look very young, which is good for you. That means you're going to be able to pull whatever you want when you're 50. But I'm saying, your knowledge, your soul, right? You have an old soul, like, and you're not the only one. Stephen Cush is not the only one, and you know Andrew Acevedo, right? Mm-hmm. You met Andrew, another young fucking what? Who are you? Like, but I feel like these are the people I value the most in the industry, because, like I said, the knowledge that is just as powerful as a 60-year-old who's been in this game, right? But not toxic. Like, you guys want more, like, you want better, like, you know, you leaving the zoo because you're like, I'd rather fix other things, you know what I mean? And not a lot of people have that mentality, especially me growing up. That really wasn't my upcoming. It was all about just get what you can get, the greedy fucking, like, you know, fuck you, pay me mentality. And, you know, I will always say I talk shit about how soft this generation is nowadays, right? But your guys' mentality, some of your guys' mentality is in the right place, and I feel like that could save this industry, man.
And I just to go back on one quick point you said, I'm not trying to down talk older.
Oh, you're cutting up, buddy. Say that again. You're cutting up. So what was that again?
I'm not trying to down talk the people in this industry who are much more successful. Like, if it wasn't for their success, I would not be able to know what I know. What I'm trying, I guess, say is that they know I break that way apart and make each little aspect of it more successful. You know, you talk about, you know, your sponsor, the Sim Container, right? Reptile Incubation is something that I love just because of how, like, it varies. You know, chameleons go for almost a whole year of incubation. Ball pythons, it's 8 weeks. And yet there's something as awesome as the Sim Container, right? Like, you look at, say, I'm going to go on a bit of a nerd tangent here, but incubation theory. What do eggs need? What? Water, air, temperature. You supply any of those three factors to whatever you're incubating, you find out the temperature, whether or not it needs high levels of humidity or none. and then of course figuring out the right amount of airflow, you can incubate anything successfully, but it's just figuring that out. And so then when you look at a product like the Sim, what you're doing is you're allowing maximum airflow, which typically with eggs, that's not a bad thing. There might be a couple exceptions, but for the most part, you could be a novice with leopard geckos, or you could be working with emerald tree monitors, right? And you're going to be able to incubate it in that container. And that's what I love, is that it's not about, oh, for a ball python, I needed a 6-quart shoebox with a 1-to-1 ratio of water to vermiculite. And you have to use this brand of egg crate, because if you use this one, there's too much airflow. And then, guy in Florida where it's naturally more humid says, oh, I just throw it right on the vermiculite and I don't even do a 1-to-1 ratio because the air is more humid. Whereas with the Sim, they've allowed that to just be problem free. It doesn't matter if you oversaturate your soil or if you undersaturate it. At the end of the day, the eggs are suspended. Or maybe for, say, in my case, Chinese water dragon eggs, right, which need it incredibly humid. I can pour water in that thing and never worry about those eggs molding. Like, that's what I like about those industry leaders, is you can take products like that and break down something, like I said, the incubation aspect. Now apply that to anything, heating, lighting. Look what Ryan and Erica McVeigh are doing at VivTech. The LED UVB lights is revolutionary, and I love it. Like, I can't wait to see what they're going to do with that business 5 years from now and how I can use it on my animals. Like, that's really freaking cool. And it's just things like that I geek out and I nerd about, because I just think it's so cool. And it not only helps new people entering this industry, but at the same time, the way we would care for a ball python 40 years ago. And we, like I said, do you remember some of the old Gen 1 Freedom Breeder racks where it was like just a metal grate across the top?
White
and
ones?
Now, yeah, the first generation Freedom Breeder racks. And now you look at where you can slide out the plastic for airflow and ventilation, so that way you can dial in your humidity. And that's just in 30 years? Imagine where we're going to be 50, 60 years from now. That's what I love. And I guess, like I said, I'm not trying to down talk that, the old people who founded the hobby are bad. Their ways worked. We, as the modern day reptile keepers, we're figuring out ways to innovate and do it better. And that's what I'm just excited for. It seems like every year there's something to look forward to. And like I said, it's exciting.
Let's geek out a little bit more about the incubation, because I have something I want to talk to you about. Steven just had an amazing clutch of chondros. I think he got 12 and ended up with 9 or 8. But the 3 or so that didn't make it was really weird how they didn't make it. One pipped out of the egg and was fully formed and just died in the egg, right? And then the other 2 just happened to die maybe a day or 2 after. They look great. And then I was asking them, what do you think that is? Because you hear that a lot, how these chondros go full term, even go to the perch, and then they'll die. And it's what? And Steven happens to think, because every time he's had a chondro clutch, he's put it inside the smaller sim box. And he's thinking that, the more space would providing could have maybe gave him a better hatch rate, meaning maybe using an XL versus a smaller one. And I'm curious, because I remember when I had green tree monitor eggs, Uncle Mike, shout out to Mike's Monitors, I threw my eggs inside of a smaller sim box, and he's like, no, nephew, put those inside of an XL. And I just want to know what your take is on that. What do you think about that?
So I've never incubated green tree python eggs, and so I can't, I guess, vouch for all of the factors. But what it sounds like to me is, exactly what Steven said, is that eggs, when they incubate, they generate heat to some extent.
Right.
And so in a sim box, you got to remember, let's say we're going to take the small sim, right? I wish I had one on me to show the camera audience, but I'm sitting in the office room. Yeah, grab it. I'll keep talking. But for those of you guys, while MJ is grabbing this, is that the rail sits about halfway between the top of the container and the bottom. And so what's happening is heat naturally rises. So as those eggs grow and they're drawing in oxygen from the air, it's a little tiny embryo at the top of this egg. What we're seeing is that it's exhaling carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas. It traps heat. Now imagine a solidly sealed sim container top. Yep, perfect, just like that. What's happening is that heat's accumulating at the top. So again, chondro eggs, say you have your incubator set to 87 degrees, which from what I understand is usually where you want it. Where the eggs are at, as that heat rises and forms a bubble of warm air near the top of that sim container, it might be 88, 89. Now, Later on in the incubation process, as those eggs grow and that embryo is drawing in more oxygen, that heat's going to build up. And that could be a reason why you have a couple of those babies go bad, because while, say, 9 out of those 12 have already absorbed enough oxygen from the remaining level of air inside that sim box, those 3 eggs, they just can't get enough. Whereas if you did use a Sim XL, your volume of airspace is that much greater to help all those eggs get that oxygen. I remember I was actually talking with Steven about this when I was at RepTech, and he was explaining something that the Barkers did, where they actually took scrub python eggs and they incubated them in those plastic trash cans, the big 4-foot tall trash cans. That way all the heat rose to the top and the eggs would stay at a constant temp throughout the entire incubation process, versus throwing them into, say, a 32-quart tub. I think that's what like retic people use or whatever. I don't know how big scrub python clutches are, but when you're dealing with that much space, that's all your air volume. Whereas if you're dealing with that much space, all hot air can rise to the top. Your eggs are going to stay at a more consistent temperature, and perhaps you will. Again, I don't know. I've never worked with chondros. Well, I mean, I've worked with them, not. But as far as breeding goes, it's just something that you're going to.
Do me a favor, Alex. Exit out and come right back in. You're glitching a lot. Just exit out and come right back in. Because one thing I'm going to elaborate on, because like Alex said, in respect to him, he's never worked with chondro eggs or incubate any kind of snake eggs. I don't believe. I could be wrong, but species matters. I can tell you that. Like the species that you're trying to hatch does matter. I mean, I could tell you how I put my ball python eggs inside of a sim box. Here's my boy, Alex. Alex, you there?
Yep, I'm back. Sorry about that.
You're good. So what I'm elaborating on right now is, and because, like you said, you haven't worked with chondro eggs. Have you worked with ball python eggs at all? Like, if you had, okay. So here, you could know this then. Chondro eggs, right? Like you said, I feel like that airflow, very important. But the way I put my ball python eggs inside of a fucking, the way I could smush 10 eggs inside of a fucking XL and have all this water build up, all this shit, and they still make it. Like, I'm not saying that they're getting soaked. Like, if it's that wet, I definitely wipe down the lid. You know what I mean? You don't want that much condensation. But what I'm saying is that happens to a chondro clutch, like meaning that wetness, it's gone. That moisture, if any kind of that moisture gets onto that egg goes bad quicker than you could fucking say shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I do know there's a difference. Like when hatching out a different type of species, some are more brute, some are more meant to go the distance than others. You know what I'm saying? So it like I said, Steven still hatched out 7 or 8 beautiful fucking chondros. You had those small portion that didn't make it. It's just a what if. Like, what if there was in the XL? You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But I didn't had Socrates, Patrick Holmes had snakes just die after even pipping or just getting on the perch, even in an XL. So I don't know. I feel like chondros is, to this day, still going to be that mystery snake as far as who knows, who really fucking knows. Because like you said, for the most part, there are other species. I mean, as far as I'm like you when it comes to, I don't have that much work with lizards under my belt. Like, and I know you have a lot of, interaction with snakes, but like chondros and stuff, you haven't worked with. So I don't know how it works with species, hatching out species of lizards, Chinese water dragons, which you're very passionate about, why don't we tap into that? Like, that's one of your favorite sought after animals that you love to work with. You do keep these to this day. I want to know how you stumbled across the species and when it was, and we can kind of dip into that right now.
Yeah, pretty much. I started working with water dragons in 2013, but the reason that I got into water dragons was actually because I originally was looking at sailfin dragons. Sailfins are my first love. I can remember vividly me not doing an English assignment in 6th grade and opening up Reptiles magazine and staring at like the sailfin dragon care sheet written by Scott Corning. Like I remember that to this day in the computer lab. As you can imagine, being a middle school kid with not a lot of money except for allowance, I couldn't afford a 4-foot giant purple awesome lizard. And so that's when I started realizing, okay, they're an agamid. And I started looking at a bunch of these other dragon-like lizards, and the water dragon was pretty much as close to a sailfin as I could get without having to spend $500 on something. I realized, back then it was great because it was cheap and affordable. Now that I'm working with them, unfortunately, it's something that I respectfully disagree with because they're not the easiest lizards to keep, but kind of like the Savannah monitors or a Nile monitor. They're one of the cheap $20 species you find at some import table, dehydrated, dead, and somebody buys it, crams it in a 20-gallon tank, and well, SOL to that lizard, I guess. But as you can imagine, myself getting one, I was super excited. And I guess one of the things that I want to highlight here is that when I got it, for me, I just love these lizards. I had no intentions of breeding her or doing anything. I kept her for 5 years before I even considered breeding her. I just wanted to raise up this lizard. I wanted to understand it. I was doing research on their natural history. And when I say research, I'm not talking everybody's care sheets. I would go on to say a friend suggested Google Scholar, right? And I'm typing in the Latin name Physognathus coccinus and getting data from Vietnam on the weather and climate, right? Trying to mimic these light cycles, because if anybody's going to know best on how to care for this difficult species, it's just going to be the data telling me where the heck they live, right?
Exactly.
And so that's pretty much how I started. I got that little female in 2013. She was about 11 inches. So I want to say maybe 6 to 8 months old out of the wild. Got her dewormed. We had a really good vet here, Dr. Stephen Barton. He's now retired, but he was a wonderful exotic vet. He actually helped Stephen out with a lot of his animals when he lived here in Chicago. Really just well respected in the herpetology or herpetoculture community here in the northwest suburbs and areas. But pretty much I raised her up, and I guess I want to say it's really cool because they start out brown. They're kind of like condors. They go through an autogenic color change. And so it was this sick, really disgusting brown lizard. And when they come in imported, they're usually covered in mud. And I was like, oh my gosh, why is she not turning green? And her first shed with me after that is like the brown peeled away, and it's this bright green lizard. She's got emerald background, blue stripes. They really are they're so stunning when they are cared for properly. And I guess to me, at the time I was 15 when she had this shed, it's just being able to see that, wow, all that stress, all that time and research, to see that my lizard is developing phenotypically like they do in the wild. Water dragons are kind of one of those weird lizards where if they're not given like a proper diet, they turn blue. You see it with green tree monitors. You see it with the basilisk lizards where you get this bright, rich emerald green lizard, and yet somebody keeps it in a fish tank and it's a washed out blue color. Like, why is a Chinese water dragon a green water dragon?
Go back to what you just said. Mm-hmm. So I've seen these high blue looking green tree monitors. And you're saying that's due to the dieting. That's not due to like the genetic or due to like the because I trip out, Alex, because I look at my green tree monitors and they're fucking gorgeous green. Nothing against the blue, right? But then I've seen like emerald looking green tree monitors, like they look blue, and I'm like, bro, what is that? Why is that? And they're actually bigger too. And I'm just curious, I want to talk a little bit more about that. I'm curious.
So I worked with emerald monitors at Reptile, but from what I understand, it all comes down to a poor diet intake, specifically deficient in carotenoids. So carotenoids are derived from plant material. Well, when you're an insect animal like a water dragon, like a green tree monitor, and you're living in these Southeast Asian humid rainforests, all the bugs there are eating these leafy greens, which are getting the best sunshine, the best nutrient availability. And so that transfers over to the diet of your reptile. And then you imagine you get something like that in captivity, and you're just throwing calcium powder on a cricket, which you haven't gut loaded properly. Or again, I'm not a monitor guy by any means, but say you're just feeding your green tree monitor mice because you think it's cool. Well, then it's not getting those carotenoids because everybody that breeds rodents is feeding, like, say, a Missouri diet or whatnot. Yep.
Alex, are you telling me that my grasshoppers that I'm dying to produce that's been eating organic romaine lettuce for the past 10 months, that's the shit my monitors need to be eating, is what you're telling me?
Yeah.
Kai, I need, bro, my grasshopper game, it's just not there, bro. I can't get these grasshoppers to keep reproducing. I've only had them. Dude, this is my most sought after project, these grasshoppers. And now, after you just told me this, it's even crazier now. I don't know what it was that made me want to get these grasshoppers going, but they're not easy, bro. They're fucking difficult. I could keep them alive. I could get them to lay in the soil, but I can't get them to fucking hatch out. And I don't know if it's because it's been cold. I don't know. I need to talk to my boy Kai. You know Kai, right? Kai.
Yeah, I've heard of him. Yeah, he does a lot of cool work with the Indicus complex.
Breaking the industry with these grasshoppers. I'm telling you right now. I'm trying to get on. I don't think I could ever get on his level because he has probably millions of grasshoppers. But I just want, because of this reason, like think about how much a grasshopper could even do for not only a green tree monitor, but for even a lace monitor. Because these things are like, these grasshoppers are like this big, bro, and they're eating nothing but romaine organic lettuce from fucking Sprouts. I know because I'm feeding them. So imagine that. You're telling me that's gonna have an influence on their skin color and shit like that? Is what you're telling me?
Correct. Well, specifically the dietary contents of those grasshoppers into your lizard. You can apply that to dubia roach. I breed all of my own feeder insects, specifically dubia roaches. And if you want, I can deep dive how I make sure my lizards look nice and pretty in a second. But for the most part, any insect that'll eat vegetable material, if you can get that insect to eat a high carotenoid diet, you're going to thrive. The best things, honestly, are carrots and sweet potatoes. Those are loaded with carotenoids. And so, obviously, I could feed my roach colonies a whole bag of carrots. But yet, when I pick them out 2 days later, they might have passed that carrot out of their system. And so what I like to do to ensure that, one, my animals are getting these carotenoids, but two, I'm not wasting an empty shell of a feeder bug. That's the one thing. It's a pet peeve of mine when they're like, oh yeah, I've got a varied diet. Well, are you varying the diet of your pet's diet? Like, are you feeding your feeders before you feed your reptile? Which I know sounds crazy, but it's such a hugely underappreciated or even just not done aspect that I see in herpeticulture. And so what I do is, honestly, I'm going to do it tonight because I feed my water dragons tomorrow. The night before I feed them, I have a little tub, which I jokingly call the Last Supper, and I'll throw collard greens, carrots, sweet potatoes in there. And these bugs just gorge themselves on this fresh vegetation for the entire night, 8 hours, to where when I come down the following morning, and myself, I said, the water dragons are diurnal. So when they eat about half an hour after the lights kick on, because they wake up, they bask, and they're ready to hunt, breed, do whatever they want to do. So when they're getting these bugs, I can grab a roach in that tub and I can see the orange color on its stomach because it's just gut loaded itself fully. And that way I guarantee that the nutrients in that carrot that are now in the roach are now going to be in my lizard. And that ensures that I'm making the most out of that feeder insect. And the best part is that now I don't have to feed as many insects. Obesity is definitely something that's not talked about enough in the reptile hobby. So many of these animals are.
It should be like the hot topic. Are you kidding?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to sound controversial here, but I think a lot of the reason I've got success working with a lot of these insectivores is that people tend to overfeed insectivores because these animals already have got a high protein diet. So people either go straight to rodents. Look at savanna monitors. There is so much data on savanna monitors that they are insect eating lizards. And yet we pump them full of mice and rats because we think it's cool. And it's super cringe to see some wannabe feeding a live rat to their savanna monitor on YouTube. And then it looks like a football and it dies in 2 years. Same thing with water dragons. I see it all the time. People feeding them pinky mice and fish even. And yet I have papers downloaded on this computer which went over the stomach contents of over 187 wild water dragons. There were no mice, no fish, no rodents in their diet. It's all insect, and 14 items were plant matter. And I guarantee you, again, those bugs are eating that plant matter, which is what I'm trying to mimic in the diets of these lizards. It's so crucial. And I mean, I did not come up with this. I have to thank a man by the name of Eric Haycraft for explaining that gut loading process to me. And I believe he derived that. I think he modified it a bit, but he got that from the legendary Bert Langerworth of Agama International. Rest his soul. Bert did some incredible things for herpeticulture when he was alive. I always like reading his papers. He did a lot of work with Australian water dragons, which are a dream species of mine to own one day. But given the Chicago climate, it's not really a good area to breed them from what I understand. So that's why I just don't have them. But it's just, again, nobody thinks about the care of their feeder insects because we're so focused on our animals, and that's awesome. But I guess that's why I have a lot of joy in the water dragons, because in order to get a grade A water dragon, I mean, I'm using water dragons as an example, green tree monitors, plume basilisks, honestly, bearded dragons, for all I care, you're probably going to see a noticeable improvement if you do it for your beardy this way, or whatever insectivorous animal you keep. The idea is that if you put more effort into the little aspects of their care, you're going to just see it, versus throwing it in a tank and trying to show it off. Like, yeah, the animal's cool, but what if you put all this crazy effort into it to make it look cooler? And that's sort of where I try to derive my husbandry off of, which was the case of this small tangent, starting with the feeder insects.
And you know, the people who have a big monitor collection out there, like the ones who have a lot of monitors and choose to only feed their monitors rodents, they do that for one reason, and one reason only.
Convenience.
It's easy. It's so fucking easy. Thaw it out, toss it to them. Well, that was fun. See you later. The whole preparation, all that shit takes time. It takes work. You got to be consistent. The variation of things, you know what I'm saying? But when you have so much going on, you kind of forget. Not that you forget, you just get numb of the fact of what is actually really important. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know. And this is even going with zoos, bro. I'm telling you, man. I don't want to bag San Diego Zoo. I mean, I don't have anyone who works there. I do have a couple people that work, kind of associate themselves with them. Nothing against San Diego Zoo. I love San Diego Zoo, but I do see some fucking gigantic reptiles at San Diego Zoo. Like, I saw this green tree monitor that was, like you said, washed out blue. It was like this big. And I was like, dude, this thing is fucking ginormous. Like, they don't get this big. Are they supposed to get this big? And you could tell this fucker just chills on the same goddamn perch all day, every day, and probably just gets tossed whenever he gets tossed every so often. And but like I said, man, convenience. That's another old school type of mentality. The way the hush-hush shit was, people just wanted things to be easier. Why do you think people were okay with changing their water once every 7 days? Are you kidding me? That is fucking ridiculous. And I don't give a fuck if you get offended by this. And if you're my homie, if you get offended by this, go fucking fix your shit, bro. Go give your snakes more water, dickhead. Why are you giving your snakes fresh water? Not even fresh water, shit water for 7 days? That's fucked up. I don't like that. That just doesn't stand right with me. But it's such a standard, you know. It's an industry standard, you know. The way these rodents, you know, fucking medium, large rats to certain snakes. I'm just starting to steer away. You know, I had Dennis on. Dennis is somebody who not a lot of people know who Dennis is, as far as a lot of new people. And I hope people stop sleeping on my boy Dennis. But he's the one who's year after year breeding basins at the fucking zoo. He's the one who's really figuring out this food cycling thing, which is very important. You know what I mean? He doesn't feed his basins anything bigger than a small rat. And these basins are fucking huge. You know what I mean? So I don't know. The whole obesity thing should be the topic of conversation for almost every podcast. Are you kidding me? Every breeder should talk about obesity, because it's true. You know what I'm saying? So convenience, right?
Exactly. And you're definitely, I mean, and I'm not trying to down talk rodents. I realize I was using rodents as an example. Like, I would not feed rodents to my lizards that are insectivores. But even with snakes, you got to remember, when they're eating rodents in the wild, that rodent is running, that rodent is foraging. It's naturally leaner to where, honestly, I see a shift with, say, I don't know, like at the shop I work at, we breed our own ball pythons. We feed exclusively small rats to some of our big 2,000-gram girls, because we choose leaner feeder items more consistently, and we are not seeing egg binding issues. We're seeing much muscular, healthier snakes because they're not getting all that fat. Right. They're just getting a small rat is roughly the same snout to vent length as a medium rat. It's just by weight at that point. So right. Your snake's really eating the same size, except for all that fat buildup. Now apply that again to something like a water dragon or a savanna monitor, which is naturally insectivorous, and you're loading it with all that excess protein, and then you're throwing it rats and mice. Pinkies are literally just little balls of fat. Yeah. I can't, and again, I'm not trying to down talk or trash talk, but I laugh at some of the articles I see. They're like, feed your female water dragon a pinky after she lays eggs for a calcium boost. A pinky, which has hardly any developed bones yet. and
It's
you
just
think it's giving her calcium.
It's just blood.
Yeah, it's like, congrats. Like, where's your science behind that? I'd rather just feed a dozen gut-loaded dusted soup worms, and that's probably going to be exponentially better for my water dragon than feeding her one pinky. I mean, if you think it's cool seeing a lizard eat a mouse, then be my guest. But when your lizard dies 2 years from now, fatty liver disease, don't come crying to me.
And I'm just curious because as much as I'm getting amped up hearing your knowledge behind the insects, I do know one thing that I could get going. I could have started this a long time ago. Andrew advised this. The dubia roaches, right? And a lot of people do have colonies going, but for people like me who don't, can you kind of walk me through what's the best way to get started on starting your own colony and getting shit going, if you don't mind?
So I wish I could tell you I knew the best way. I'm not a mass dubia breeder. So what I'm going to tell you is,
I want to know your way. What would you do?
So what I ideally, if I could have a heated room, or even like say your snake room, because I know you run ambient heat. That's what I do in my reptile room for all my colubrids is I just run ambient.
How hot? Give me temps.
Anywhere from 75 to say 82 degrees ambient Fahrenheit.
Perfect.
If you can't do ambient heat, then a heat pad below with a hot spot of like 85 is fine. So like say 68 standard room temp and then a hot spot of 85. But in my experience, ambient heat is so much better just because they're naturally forest floor dwellers. It's a South American species of cockroach. So they naturally are just used to the ambient heat because there's no sun hitting the under the leaf litter and whatnot where they are. It's just the temperature of the air. But obviously in captivity, we can make exceptions. And I do both methods. I've had success with both. So it's just, if I could pick, I would choose ambient. But at the moment, I am doing both. So what I do is I've got kind of ghetto, just 2 tubs. They can't climb smooth surfaces. They're not a climbing roach like a hissing roach or any other species. Egg crates on, wall to wall. Some people will leave a spot on the floor for food. I like to maximize the surface area, and I line the entire tub with egg crates. And then I just throw a flat egg crate vertically or horizontally, I guess, on the top layer of these egg crates spaced vertically. And I load that with a dry gut load diet. Again, working at the pet shop, I get the Pangea Super Pig wholesale. Another thing that I'm working on, I'm waiting for my order, is I actually like the Missouri Tortoise diet, because it's a natural high fiber plant-based diet for tortoises. So that's what I would feed to my insects. You can also feed dog food, but do it in moderation, because if all you're feeding is dog food to your roaches and that's their only source of food, the excess protein in their diet causes them to build up uric acid, and that's not good when you feed it to your insect-eating reptile. It's going to cause gout and a bunch of liver issues, but it's okay to do it in moderation. Roaches actually have this fantastic ability. They can smell a piece of food and differentiate the amount of proteins and carbohydrates in it. So if you offer a little bit of dog food, a little bit of a high-fiber, carbohydrate-rich diet, that they're going to thrive, because then the individual roach is regulating the nutrients it needs. Again, variety. If you're doing that, you're never going to really run into uric acid problems. I see so many dubia roach forums. They're like, dog food is the devil. You're going to kill your reptiles. Again, moderation is the key. And then for water, some people do water gel. I was actually just talking with a good friend of mine on the phone about this, and I just don't like water gel. The roaches really don't seem to like it. They crap in it, and it just gets really dirty. So then 3 times a week, I'll throw in carrots. I'll buy heads of the romaine lettuce, break off a couple, something that's really rich in moisture and water, and then they just get that from their food. They're roaches. They're really hard to kill when they're set up properly, and so that's how you give them their water.
So just like anything else, the variation diet, you want to give them the tortoise Missouri
Missouri tortoise diet.
Yeah, with a little bit of dog food, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you want to give them the vegetables and whatnot for the hydration, so they get that water in them. And then that's basically, you're just cycling that out. Is it constantly feeding every day type of thing, right?
So I always leave my dry food in. They have access to that 24 hours a day. I'm in the Midwest, so it gets really dry. So typically in the summer, when our AC's on and our humidity's higher, the roaches don't dehydrate as much. So they might get their wet food, the lettuce, the carrots, sweet potato, say twice a week. And in the winter, I might do that every other day just because it's so dry here. You kind of have to balance out how long the food is going to be on there. how long it takes your roach colony to consume it. A smaller colony is not going to need as much food. Some of my big colonies, I'm looking at almost 2,000 individuals in one tub. I'll throw half a head of lettuce in there and it's gone by the next day. So you just got to figure out, I wish I could tell you if you have this much food and this many roaches, you got to figure it out on your own as far as what's the perfect balance. And then from there, leave them alone. The biggest success that I've had with dubias is if you have your breeding tub in a feeder tub. So pretty much what I do is the breeding tub, it's solitary neglect. You feed it and you forget about it and they do their thing. Dubias, from what I understand too, are naturally a less confident. They're a much shyer cockroach. I used to breed a bunch of like hissing roaches back in the day before I became more allergic to cockroach frass. And so the hissers are super confident. They're eating that food right away. You can shuffle through all the egg crates. They're not going to care. You do that with a well-established dubia colony, they're going to stop breeding for a month. So just forgetting about them and let them amass this massive colony. And then say, with my colonies, I've got 3 breeding colonies and then the 1 feeder tub. Maybe 2-3 times a year, I sift through it. I pick out the sizes that I mainly feed to my water dragons. I select nymphs when I've got eggs on the way, so that way I can feed the little babies. And then from there, like I said, the adults just keep doing their thing when you leave them alone. The key really for me is just having those multiple colonies that I don't touch.
So, I mean, let's kind of talk about a little bit more as far as like, what's the ratio that you start off with, right? Like how many do you start off with? And then from there, right? Like you said, once that colony is thriving, they're eating, there's a certain point where you just leave them alone, right? And don't fuck with them. But obviously you still feed them and stuff, right? You just don't, don't touch them, right?
Yeah, like if you open the lid, they're going to be fine. I'm talking, when I say I'm not touching them, I'm not sifting through these egg crates and going whole ham on them, saying, oh, how many males, how many females do I have? The ideal ratio is, and again, this is just what's worked for me. I try and do 1 male for every 5 to 8 females. It just depends on what I have on hand at the time.
Some people, are they easy to sex?
Very. So yeah, they're sexually dimorphic. So the males have a pair of vestigial wings, meaning they're useless. They can't fly. Okay. And then the females lack that. They're just I think they're beautiful. They've got little yellow specks and stuff on them. But that's just me being, a bug nerd at that point. And so, yeah, males have wings. Females are dark without wings. You can just count them. And from there, set up your tub and let them do the work for you. All you have to do is feed them and then sort them when you got to get more stock into a feeder tub to feed your reptiles.
So one more time, how many should I start off with again? I'm sorry.
I say 1 male for every 5 to 8 females. And I mean, I'm not going to lie, when I'm sorting through my colonies, I eyeball it. So I dump them all out into a big tub. That way I can get some genetic diversity. Even though they are roaches, they are prone to inbreeding depression. So even when I'm at like NARBC, I'll just buy a couple dubias from different vendors just to add some new blood. And then I'll just pour them into my colonies, right? And then, like I said, 3 times a year, I just throw all these colonies. It's like just one massive roach pit. It's probably somebody's worst nightmare. And then what I do is I just start with my little headlamp because my roach room is kind of dark and whatnot. I just go male, 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 male. I go female, 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 female. And I count out 5 females per tub, and then I grab another male, and I just keep doing it. And usually it takes me a couple hours. And then after that, I have a bunch of the nymphs left, and I'll just throw some nymphs in here, throw some in there. And then I sort the nymph sizes that I need to feed my lizards for the next 6 months or so.
So only 1 male per colony is what you need, is what you're saying?
No, 1 male per 5 to 8 females in a colony.
So if there's going to be 20 fucking females, you need to have at least like 3 males or something, right?
Yeah, 4 males. Yep.
4 males. Okay. All right. Cool. All right. Sounds good. I like that also too. Like, if you're at a show, like just get somebody else's Dubais and just mix it up a little bit. You might see some cool shit coming from it too.
One thing I'll say, and I just learned this, so I actually have to take care of it, is that some people use what are called buffalo beetles in their dubia roaches, and it acts as like a cleanup crew. When the roaches die and the frass falls to the bottom, the buffalo beetles eat the frass and the roach exoskeleton. Here's the issue. Once the buffalo beetles get going, they will also eat roach nymphs. Oh, so wow. Ask the vendor if they use buffalo beetles, because once you get them in your colony, they're very difficult to get rid of. I unfortunately have some buffalo beetles thankfully established in my feeder tub. I haven't seen any in my breeding tubs, but for all I know, I don't look at my breeding tubs enough, so they're probably in there. But just as a way to start yourself off, do dubias only. Don't do any of those cleanup crew insects. I've seen some people do bioactive substrates in roach species tubs for like your ivory roaches and like some of your burrowing species like sand roaches. Dubias really don't let the poop, or roach frass is the technical term, fall to the bottom, and the baby roaches, the nymphs, actually eat that. And so that's why, I know it sounds really gross, but that's why I say solitary neglect. I try to avoid cleaning my tubs for as long as possible. And typically when you have an established colony, the nymphs are eating enough of that frass to where, they don't smell like crickets. They don't die like crickets. All you have to do is feed them, heat them, and then forget about them.
Every time you say nymph, it reminds me of fucking Game of Thrones.
Yeah, that's valid.
Awesome, man. Great information, bro. Fuck, man. I need to get on my insect tip, man. I'm telling you right now. After having Brandon Van Asten on the show, shout out to Brandon, that guy, man. I'm telling you right now, man. The kind of information you're spitting is kind of hitting me the way Brandon hits me, bro. I'm telling you, you got some good shit packed in your head. I can tell you that. But one thing that Brandon elaborated in the show was the same thing that you brought up, was the studies of, I think, 49 green tree monitors in the wild, and they looked to see what was inside of them. And I think one of them had some sort of a mammal or something, but something really small like a rodent. Everything else had insects in it. And that really hit me, man, because at the end of the day, like, Brandon is a very successful tree monitor breeder. You know what I'm saying? Like, and he puts a lot of study behind this. And for him to drastically change like this whole dieting program for his monitors, it makes you, why wouldn't you want to kind of jump on that? You know what I'm saying?
I think some of it is definitely it's new information. It's going to take a while to get to a larger audience. And like we said, too, there's just some people that once they figure out their way, they want to stick to it. Even if there's a way that's arguably better, they don't want to change it. Now, obviously, I'm saying that, and I'm not talking like, I like to joke, the Facebook bioactive Nazi groups who are yelling at rack people. Like, obviously, there's a different conversation for that. But when you're talking about, say, an animal's natural history, in the aspects of that natural history and providing it into the care of the animal, that's where I guess that debate goes into something totally different as far as what's arguably better. And I'm telling you, with the water dragons, and like you said, with Mr. Van Asten, just read a research paper. If anybody's going to tell you the best way to keep your animal, it's going to be the data literally collected from the wild telling you how these animals are living their lives. Like, you can't argue that. You want to understand what a lizard from Papua New Guinea is eating, look at the dying contents of specimens collected in Papua New Guinea, not somebody's, animal plastic cage with the fancy bark ground or whatever. You know what I mean? It's just, it's how it is, I guess. But I don't know. What do I know, right?
Somebody, I forgot who it was in my Patreon page, my Patreon family, when I posted I was going to bring on the show, called you the Kush of lizards. Like, called you, like, basically, Kush is king, he's scrub king, right? But I didn't know. Okay, what's crazy, he told me this, right? And I'm like, yeah, totally. I know Alex is fucking very passionate, knowledgeable behind a lizard species as a whole. But I did not know you helped Steven and Desiree get the green tree monitors that helps get cycled, or you were a part of that. I need to know about that. I need to talk more about this, man. Like, how did you approach this? What did you guys come up with and stuff like this when back when you were at RepTech?
Yeah. So, don't definitely give me too much credit, but part of my college degree, aside from wanting to go into natural resources and conservation, I did want to have some professional experience under my belt. So I'm actually minoring in captive animal husbandry with a focus in reptiles, just so that way, if, whoever I end up working for, they can say, oh, this guy also knows some basic reptile care. And so Steven and Des were super kind enough to let me intern at their facility and pretty much just give me the whole, here, you're going to care for our entire collection. And it was really cool. And so one of the big focuses through that internship was just having different projects. You remember when you visited us for Schaumburg and NARBC, Steven, myself, Brock there, we all redid the Montane room and figuring out how to dial in our temps and whatnot for Montane species. And of those many projects, one of them was attempting to get the green tree monitors to breed. And so I'm just going to quickly attempt to find my notes here. So I don't think I can, screen share, but if I have it on here, There it is. So pretty much what it was is that they had a pair of green tree monitors together. And from what I understand, this is a pair that has bred before, but I don't know if it had been breeding consecutively. And so I decided to take a little bit more thorough notes when working with this pair of green trees. And again, it helped that they had bred in the past. So there's always going to be some bias there on that pair of individuals. Green trees, while I understand they're the most commonly bred of the tree monitor species, we're always trying to learn more and gather more information.
100%.
And so when I started working there, the first thing that I did is I hooked up the Miss King system to all their monitor cages. For those of you guys that are listening, Miss King it's a pretty much the best of the best misting system. From what I understand, the only thing that comes close to it is the Pro Mist by Pro Products. But what it can do is that it just simply sprays and maintains humidity in a much finer way. So instead of just dousing your cage with water, it's a microfine mist to where your lizards won't really drink from it. But instead of, say, having a fogger where you risk a lot of that condensed water vapor causing a respiratory infection in your animal to some extent, the mist just simply adds a little bit of water droplets to the entire surface of a selected area that's sprayed by those nozzles, and it evaporates and creates humidity. And so when I was monitoring that, we set it to spray 3 times a day. We're trying to make this cage as hot and humid as possible. We're trying to mimic that rainy season in Papua New Guinea. And we were also, it's summer, so now the sun's hitting the building. It's getting really hot. From what I understand, I'm checking my notes. It says the record ambient temperature high in that room was 87.3 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're not even talking basking, right? We are talking the temperature of the air in this cage that these monitors are exposed to. Basking was maintained right at around 120. Oh, not 120. Sorry.
What about nighttime? What about nighttime, Alex?
I was not there working at night. So when I would get there in the morning, my record low was like 74 degrees Fahrenheit.
Okay, that's respect. Okay. So that's
unfortunately I don't have a ton of data on the nighttime temps high, but basically it was maintaining that air in the 80s during the day and spraying it 3 times a day to attempt to keep that humidity as close to 80, even 90% as possible. Ideally, even higher at night as you're not having heat lamps drying out surfaces. That humidity is going to spike. And from what I understand, too, a lot of reptiles do hydrate that way to some extent. They rely on those extreme nighttime levels of humidity. I don't have a paper to prove that. I think there is one, though. I was listening to like a chameleon podcast, and they were mentioning that how chameleons dehydrate, the key is keeping stuff humid at night. And I was like, oh, maybe I can incorporate that into some of my tropical species. I do it with my water dragons, great success. I've got a buddy that does it with Salfins, great success. And so we were trying to do it with the tree monitors. And obviously, by the end of that internship, having gotten eggs, I'd like to say there was some success to it. But I'll just quickly jot down here. When they copulated, it was witnessed in the afternoon at 1:33 p.m. And I don't think I have the date on this set of notes, but it says then on my next thing of notes that it was exactly 28 days from the observed copulation to the female laying.
wow.
And one thing that I want to note here, so I mean, when I could find anything on, like, I dug through some of kingsnake.com's old forums, just saying, does anybody have notes on breeding tree monitors? And 28 to 32 days, possibly even sooner, depending on how that female's cycling, is when they would lay. But again, don't quote me on this. This is one set of data, and I'm not even a huge tree monitor person. I'm just sharing what I recorded.
Because obviously he's having repeat success with these green tree monitors, right? They're going well. Do you happen to know? I know Steven told me this, but I can't remember. But do you know how long it was when they had then they had the second clutch after they dropped the first one? When you were there for that first clutch, how soon after did the next one come? Do you have that information by chance?
They literally laid that first clutch, and then I left that internship 3 days later. I was only there for 9 weeks, so I can only record so much, unfortunately. I was never informed that they had a second clutch, so I don't know if that's still incubating or not right now.
It's good. They're good. They've already hatched out. They've already. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, unless you're thinking. So then I guess what I misunderstood. I thought you meant that they laid that clutch that year, and then they laid a second clutch right after that.
I don't know if it was that year, but that following year they did.
Okay.
And he's had 2 successful green tree
monitors. 2 total. Okay, so then this was just the one clutch from 2021 that I'm talking about. Yeah.
So they're coming a year apart then, from what
they're coming a year apart. And that's what I said. I recorded this data. trying to tell Stephen, like, if you're able to mimic this, see if you can produce them year back to back, because then we can start working on that. You know, I like to jokingly say the math equation: you do this plus this plus this plus this, it equals eggs. You have successfully had those animals gone through a cycle. It's kind of controversial, but arguably some of those Indonesian species where there's just so much food going around yearly, maybe they do breed every other year, and that's just how they act. And maybe if you get them to go back to back, it's too much on them. Again, I've got no data to support this. This is all just me hypothesizing stuff based on my own experience, but who's to say?
I mean, and honestly, going back to, like, you know, one thing that's very important, and I'm not saying this isn't important, but one thing that is very like stressed about is having a proper nest box, right, for any monitor, like, because things could go bad, right? Stevens Grinchy monitors have no nest box, you know, and they lay them straight on the soil, and like that, just like that. It's crazy how that could happen, you know, and for whatever reason, Steven doesn't want to switch it because it works. Like he's getting eggs like that. So why would you want to switch something that's not, you know, broken, you know, or you know that saying. But I mean, what's your thought process behind the nest box and all that?
Yeah. So I guess I'm not sure what Steven's opinions were on, like, if he's fine with them just laying on the soil. I see it personally as a big failure of mine, because when I came in that morning, she had those 4 eggs scattered on top of the soil. And if you've seen Steven's cages, so the way I originally had it set up when I was there is I had a light bulb underneath emitting heat from below to keep the soil heated. And she was test digging. She had holes that went straight down to the bottom.
Right.
The light must have burnt out the day before she laid, because when I came there the next morning, the eggs were on top of the soil and the light underneath was burnt out. So clearly that soil wasn't hot enough. Whether or not, yeah, right. She didn't lay them in the soil. She laid them on top of the soil. If his first clutch was dug under the soil, you know, that's awesome. Full cage nesting definitely has its benefits. It's something that I've done in the past for water dragons. I just think, though, with species like tree monitors, and I mean, arguably any of those rare species or species that we're trying so hard to dial in as a hobby, or again, the industry, is that it's just more convenient for us as keepers to not have to search a 4x2 cage for 4 little eggs when we can find it in a sterilite box. If I were to have done it my way, I've talked with Mike Stefani, I like heat from the side, just because, right, again, I think Mother Nature, the sun radiates heat down. So the soil near the top's going to be hot. Heat doesn't really come from below. Yes, right, there are certain snakes that utilize infrared C, being re-emitted from the ground. That's why we give them belly heat, and they do great with it. But with monitor nesting, I guarantee you, she's testing the temperatures. She's trying to figure out the sweet spot. In the wild, it's going to be where the sun hits the ground just right to where she can lay those eggs, get them for 100+ days, and they're going to hatch and make little babies. In captivity, yes, maybe we do get eggs somewhat from heat from below, but I feel like if they could talk, they'd say, the sun hits from above. Ideally, I would have had a 200-watt heat lamp hitting a section of soil to really let her, pick and choose. But of course, you do that in a cage, you're just going to dry out the soil, and that's going to lead to a bunch of other problems. So you got to sort of work with what you're given. But, it worked. Those eggs did hatch later that December during my RepTech internship. But if I were to say that that's the most ideal way, again, I guess that's up for debate. I personally would rather have like a heated nest box just for the sake of finding eggs easier, and arguably, again, the comfort of the female, because it's clear that once that heat lamp from below burnt out and she scattered her eggs all over the soil, that to me just doesn't seem natural. That sounds like a stressed mama lizard that couldn't find a place to lay eggs. And again, that's why I'm saying I felt like a failure. It's like, God damn it, Alex, we were this close to success. We were so close. And she just scatters them on the ground. So if I were to redo that, I would personally just layer a strip of heat tape on either the back wall or one of the sides, set it to say 88, 90 degrees. So that way the soil on the inside of that PVC wall is starting at 86 against the wall. And then it just gives her that gradient to pick and choose where she wants to go.
So you're saying you would still go no nest box, just have that soil heated with the
Yeah, if I could do full cage nesting like that, yes. Or even, if you can do a nest box that's heated, that'll work well too. Again, it just, as long as, I think it's not so much about the debate of do they need a nest box, do they not need a nest box? It's more or less making sure she has a heated spot to lay. And depending on your style of caging, whether or not you use full cage floor nesting or just a nest box will determine whether or not that's going to be usable for your monitor. At the end of the day, mama tree monitor just wants a heated area to lay eggs. How you provide it is ultimately down to your preference.
Now, when they do this testing, is it because they know they're gravid, or do they sometimes just test dig just to fucking peep shit out? Like, what's your opinion behind the testing?
I wish I could say, like, from working with monitors longer, I'm just going to guess that maybe, you know, they're monitors. They like to dig. I've seen Mike Stefani's place. The dirt's all mixed up there, and they weren't even breeding when I visited there, right? Who's to say that a mama tree monitor isn't going through her instincts wanting to look for grubs in the soil? I would say when I was working at RepTech, she was definitely test digging because she was going to make eggs. She was intentionally seeking out a spot to lay eggs. And I know that because obviously she did lay eggs. But to say that I saw my monitor dig, she's going to be laying eggs, who's to say? I wish I could tell you. I honestly don't know.
Well, here's a curveball I got, Alex. January, I was lucky enough. I mean, same like you, though. The way she laid them was not ideal. She laid them in the corkwood, and I'm assuming because it was too cold. Like I didn't. This is before the Stefani episode where he dropped the knowledge behind having the heat on the side. I had no heat at the bottom. I can tell you that. So I'm assuming that's probably why she wanted to lay them closer to the heat. I'm assuming, right? But period, she was not happy with her nesting, right? Obviously, you know, she didn't want to lay them in there for reasons. So I redid the nesting this year, or excuse me, after that. I didn't see like what's crazy what you just said, right? I saw them fucking locking. They were in Pound Town like a couple days back to back, and then literally 3 to 4 weeks right after that, she like, I was like, what? Like it happened really quicker than I thought. I was like, because I witnessed, I don't want to say the ovulation, but I saw where she was so rounded, and you know, obviously green tree monitors don't get rounded. They're pretty slender for the most part, right? So I saw this rounded animal, and I'm like, yo, this is crazy. And I was telling Steven and Andrew, and they're like, well, they weren't too sure, you know, because only I'm watching, right? But I saw the locks. I saw what went down, and I noticed how she blew up, and then she laid them in the corkwood. Now, I fixed the next boxing. I did exactly what Stefani said. I put the heat, and the only thing I did not see was the actual lock. I didn't see any like of the sexual action go down like I did before. Doesn't mean it didn't happen, right? But one thing she did, Alex, is she kept digging these perfect tunnels going all the way down. She had multiple tunnels, and I was like checking the nest box. I'm like, dude, wow, these are fucking like perfectly like I could tell she was happy, right? And then for whatever reason, I pulled the male, and I just thought like so I had Shane. I had Shane from SE Constrictor on the show, and Shane was like, "Yeah, man, if she's test taking like that, she's getting ready. I would pull the male, you know, and nothing against Shane, but he's advised that I pull the male." And I was like, "All right, I'll pull the male." And again, she went from test taking to covering the holes, and I was like, "Holy shit!" So I checked, nothing, no eggs. Okay, so I put everything and put everything back. 2 weeks goes by, same scenario. She's digging, then she covers the holes. I check, no fucking eggs. So now I'm like, what's happening? I'm looking at her body structure. She does look, I don't want to say skinny. She doesn't look deflated, but I'm definitely in the loop right now. Like I don't, you know, I already introduced the male back to her again. I'm looking and there hasn't been any holes. There's no testing going on all of a sudden. So I don't know. I'm just trying to figure things out, man.
I mean, I said, all my tree monitor experience was based on that internship. I'm not an expert by any means on the tree monitor. You're talking to a water dragon guy here. But from what it sounds to me, because I've experienced this, I guess, you know, where she probably just reabsorbed for whatever reason. I had that happen last year in 2021 with me being at my internship. I had to painfully watch my female water. My father was kind enough to send me photo updates. I could see she'd swell up and she's just reabsorbing because the male wasn't paired with her, right? So maybe you had locks, and at the end of the day, like, I don't know, people are like, oh, they locked, I'm going to get eggs. Reptiles can retain sperm. At the end of the day, she knows what's best for her body. I mean, I don't know what you were feeding her. Maybe there was a cold spell and that threw her systems off. But
it was cold. Yeah. That's for sure.
So
damn,
maybe
that makes sense.
So, I mean, like I said, I watched it with my water dragon. She swelled up 4 times in a single summer, and she just reabsorbed. She would test dig. There were holes everywhere in the substrate, but she wasn't fertilized. And I do suspect my room got a little too hot, so she didn't have access to cooler areas to properly even calcify those ovulations because she didn't even lay infertile eggs. Whereas this year, now that I'm able to spend a little bit more time coming home on weekends and whatnot, I had a clutch of eggs 5 weeks ago. I'm expecting another clutch this time, and I have allowed this female not only to see my male, but to get down to those cooler areas. So, I mean, again, that's a water dragon thing. To say what went wrong with your tree monitors, I honestly don't know. It's just something where maybe take notes on when you had eggs in the past and try and start replicating with that success, and then dial in the different little factors to it. I mean, to start at the top of the podcast when you were having me talk, it's all about every little aspect that comes together to get eggs as your end result, or a healthy animal as your end result, or even a proper temperature, probe placement and thermostats, right? Like every little thing that goes into keeping your animals happy and healthy, getting them to breed, you just have to take into consideration for that. And arguably, where you live in California is going to be different than how you set up a monitor in Florida or in Indiana, right? So you just got to sort of work with what you got and then adjust it so it fits your animal's needs and your needs. And once you get to that, it's, you're going to be on a roll.
Alex, I love you, right? But don't ever disrespect me again by telling me to take notes, you motherfucker. You hear me? Don't ever disrespect me like that again. I'm just kidding.
That's the scientist in me. I take notes on everything, dude.
I do too. No, listen, I'm not being a ball python keeper here. I take specific, heavily notes. I mean, it all started with the emeralds and the chondros because, you want to make sure they shit. You want to make sure that stays consistent. You know what I mean? Like, that's one thing I do mark when it comes to the chondros and emeralds is their meals and their shits. Those are two important things. But the monitors, man, I'm telling you, it really made me take my note-taking to a whole nother level because it really does matter. And you're right, and I was just busting your balls. I mean, at the end of the day, if I had this note mentality down in January, I would probably be in a more clear state of mind with this, but I am just winging it. And at the end of the day, like, Stefani doesn't wing shit with Stefani's fucking dialed the fuck in. Stefani is so dialed in, it's ridiculous because he pays attention to that shit. And things like this takes note taking. How are you going to pay attention to it if you're not taking notes? So as much as you just punked me on my own show, I needed that. I appreciate that. I do need to stay on top of the note taking, and that's important. I feel like anything you're going to try to attack project wise, you should be taking notes.
It's definitely a very important part. Again, when you're working with rare and uncommon reptiles or even just animals that aren't worked with, like I said, water dragons, they're cheap. You can get them on a table. 90% of people that buy them, that kill them. And yet I can maybe name 5 people off the top of my head that consistently produce them here in the United States, and gathering data from all of them and sharing with them my data. When I bred them in 2018, 2019, 2020, took 21 off, like I said, and I'm working on it for this year. So the idea is that if I can figure out how I'm breeding them here in Illinois and what I've seen in captivity, and then sharing it to somebody in Michigan, sharing it to somebody in Florida, we can just start to work on making it to where, ideally in the future, write a book saying, listen, you do this step, this step, this step, this step, and your female does this, 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 and this, you're going to get eggs, right? Like, that's what we all want. Unfortunately, we're not there yet, and that's why I'm ideally working towards it. But until I get there, I will keep learning.
Let's kind of get this story rolling here. I want to know how you and Kush cross paths, and then I want to know how it was working side by side with Kush with your experience at RepTech. So let's take things back. You and Kush know each other from where?
We both worked together at the Wildlife Discovery Center in Lake Forest. I was a volunteer there. He was a employee there.
You guys are the same age, right? Just to be.
Yeah, okay. I think his birthday is in, I want to say June, so he's a few months older than me.
I think July. June?
Oh, July. June or July. I'm sorry, Steven. Please don't take it personally.
Okay, so you guys, and how old were you guys when you guys met?
I want to say we were both around like 15-ish.
Okay. You guys met at the, at 15, and then around 2021 is when you went over to RepTech, right? So just last year.
That was my internship last year, from June till the start of August.
what was your feeling when you went to RepTech? You know, because obviously, I mean, it is a paradise in a sense. You know, there's so many different types of species and whatnot. But when you notice that this was all on Steven's, you know, Desiree had a big piece too, but Steven runs the show there. You know what I mean? What did I mean? Did you feel a little stressed out? Did you feel like, holy shit, this is a lot to deal with? Were you excited? I want to know what the initial feeling was for you when you first went over to RepTech.
It was a lot of fun. Like I said, though, it was an animal care internship. So at the end of the day, I'm kind of really doing what a zookeeper does. Steven asked me to care for a large majority of his collection, spot cleaning, changing water, and it gets to it becomes a lot of work. I worked 7 days a week there. Usually I'd go there for a few hours over the weekends, but, you know, some weekdays it's, you know, I'd get there at sometimes 6:30 a.m. and we wouldn't leave at the longest day, leave till 8 at night. Usually I'd be there for still 10 hours, sometimes 11 hours, 5 days a week, and then popping in for a couple hours on the weekends. So it's a lot. It more reinforced my idea of why I really don't want to work in a zoo. But I have to say, like, I felt kind of honored. You know, Steven's asking, like, listen, man, I got to manage the business side of it. I got to manage your coworkers. I'm asking you to care for all of my animals, right? I feel like for me too, it was a fun learning experience. You know, I'm not a huge snake guy. Steven, I'm being able to hook him out of an enclosure and pull, you know, a 12-foot snake out safely and professionally. I think that's really cool. And to say that I did it when I was 20 years old without even a degree yet, like that's so cool. And like, I respect Steven and Dez's work building that collection so much more, because how many zoos are breeding scrub pythons, right?
Right.
Exactly. I didn't hear anything. So the point is that it was a lot of work, and it's definitely not something to be taken lightly. I've got my passion. I love caring for animals. But at the same time, just if you were to tell me, would I ever have a collection of, say, over 400 animals like that? Probably not. And hey, I respect them and what they do for it. It was an eye-opening internship. You know, I'm not trying to down talk it, but like, I have to acknowledge that Steven is a friend and my boss in that situation. And so working for him, I have to make sure I do it his way. One of the biggest issues that, and again, working at a local pet shop, I see this is sometimes we'd hire new employees who keep reptiles, right? And they think, oh, I'm going to do it my way. No, these are not your animals. Like, if Steven asked me to keep his scrub pythons a certain way, make sure his herp stats are programmed a certain way, set up egg incubation a certain way, I'm going to do it. They're his animals. He knows his animals better than I do, right? And that's one of the things that, you know, if you do end up working for somebody, you know, if those listening, just because you do something a certain way doesn't mean everybody else is going to do it your way. You're not the king of the world. Congrats. You're not special. I mean, you are special, but you're special in the way that you do things. But when you're working, again, for Steven, I don't keep scrub pythons. What the heck am I going to know about scrub pythons? But I got to learn by doing successful methods that Steven has had in rearing them. And it also opened my eyes in working with different practices, working with different species. They've got, you know, dozens of species that are RepTech. And it's just something that it was a worthwhile internship. I got college credit for it. And at the same time, it was, I don't know, I hadn't talked with Steven much when he left for RepTech. So being able to sort of, I guess, spend a summer with him was kind of nice, just catching up and, you know, doing some good, honest animal work.
You gotta understand, man, like, Steven is somebody, like I said, I'm realizing the people I value the most. I mean, no disrespect to the OGs like Uncle Mike. I love Uncle Mike. He's very top, one of the top people I value the most too. But when it comes to valuing the youth, Steven was the first one I met where I was like, dude, this fucking guy is like, the knowledge behind what he knows compared to his age is like, I've never seen this before. And then I met you and I saw that you guys are really similar, man. Like, I'm talking about like the way you were talking about things. Obviously I feel like you have a lot more excitement. Steven doesn't get really excited about much. He'll tell you what you want to hear and he'll fucking give you, but it's really hard to get like Steven like animated. You know what I mean? He's a very fucking whoo. You know that. You worked with Steven. But you, right? You're very just you can tell the excitement when you're talking about something, and that's one thing I valued about meeting you at RepTech, because I was picking your brain. I want to know, like, what is it that you're intrigued most about? And I think back when I met you, it was all about the Montaigne room, and you're getting or not, was it the Abronia room? I mean, I don't know what was going on, but you were really dialed into getting that room together and whatnot. But yeah, man, I'll never forget. And I have to ask you, and I'm curious, because I do have a wrap-up question for you. Before we get to that point, I am curious, since you've worked at RepTech and these zoos, and I know you're in school, once you get to that point and you're done with school, your life where it's at, what do you want to be working with? Like, where do you see yourself working with species-wise? Not even just breeding, but what do you just feel like you want to have and keep once you're able to?
That's tough because I like to say it's my grateful 8. All 5 species of sailfins, Chinese water dragons, I check them off, Australian water dragons, and plume basilisks. If I can keep those 8 species, I'm going to die a happy man. And then if I were to say some odds and ends, definitely working at RepTech did get me some appreciation for monitors. Maybe some species of tree monitor, if I were ever to consider it. Blue tails would be a lot of fun. I like the look and the structure and the behavior of Indicus complex monitors. Before I broke up with my ex, we had a mangrove monitor, which was pretty cool. So just being able to, work with something like that again. Otherwise, like I said, I'm not a huge snake person. I like my colubrids though. Vietnamese blue beauty snakes are one of my favorite old world colubrids. Some of the Pataia species, and then some of like the not Central American, but I guess Caribbean boas. Currently at the shop, we've got a pair of Dominican red mountain boas, which is a little bit of a sentimental snake to me because we had those at the Wildlife Discovery Center, and they're just something that I always found cool. So being able to keep and attempt to breed those one day would be a fun side project, but for the most part, it's going to be sailfins that I'm looking forward to getting right out of school. Like I said, I don't have the space for a 4-foot lizard, but I've just done so much work and I've spent so much time trying to understand the genus Hydrosaurus. Obviously, like I said, they got me into water dragons. And so talking with, a very small, tight-knit group of people, one of them being Casey Schultz of Zion Hill Exotics, shameless plug to her. You should definitely interview her on your podcast. But I co-authored a Reptiles Magazine article with her where we broke down the taxonomy of the now recognized 5 species of sailfin dragons. And we spent so much work on that. And she's just been a huge mentor as far as, teaching me her care techniques and whatnot. So by the time I'm out of school, I don't screw up initially. She can say, listen, don't do this, but do this, this, and this for success with sailfin dragons. And that just puts me one step ahead of the game to where ideally, if I really could get my hands on some adults and acclimate them for a year, I would love to say maybe once I graduate, I can get sailfins breeding 2 years out of school. But I'm not going to quote anything just yet. That's the dream. But for the most part, it's going to be sailfins. I want to work with all of them, ideally all 5 species. And if I could break it down even more, the various phenotypes. I'd love to work with Ternate and Halmahera phase, Weberi, the northern and southern phenotype, Hydrosaurus microlophus and Hydrosaurus celebensis. If they could ever come into the States, I would love the South Philippine sailfin dragon. But all of the Philippine sailfins that we've got in the States are of the northern phenotype. Philippine sailfins are already cool, right? They're this purple and blue lizard. But the ones found on the southern islands like Bohol, Cebu, they're actually a green and purple. They look so incredible. They're gorgeous lizards. But again, the Philippines quit exporting sailfins from their islands in 1994. They're listed as a vulnerable species according to IUCN. And as far as I don't know if there's any CITES surrounding them. There probably is, but I'm not aware of that. I should get onto that. But that would be the goal, to get that southern phenotype in. But until they do come in, if they do come in, they're going to be in some off-the-grid people's hands for obvious reasons.
Are you kidding me, bro? You're joking.
Yeah, that's Hydrosaurus celebensis. So that's from Sulawesi.
No, this is not southern.
That's the southern phenotype of Hydrosaurus celebensis. So the northern phenotype, you can't really find it on Google. Actually, there's a male northern phenotype, the bottom left. So in the northern regions of Sulawesi, from what I can see based on geographical, bottom left of your Google search.
Right here?
Yeah, the males are all black of that phenotype of celebensis.
Oh my God, look at that thing. Dude,
and then
sure.
the females actually have got an all black face with a completely yellow body, but I can't find any Google searches of them on there. I've got photos on my computer and on my phone of them, but they're wonderful lizards. They come in so many different phenotypes, and there's a lot of mystery to them, which is weird because they're the largest species of the agamids, and they're just wonderful. So yeah, that's real. That's actually a specimen owned by Scott Corning. He's pretty much the grandfather of sailfins. Scott Corning and Ryan Shermell. Yeah, and that's Scott's baby. That's Joxer, actually. I didn't get to see Joxer, but I actually got to see Joxer's girlfriend. She's a 27-year-old Philippine sailfin dragon. So when I visited Scott last year, I mean, he's the man for it. Another really awesome guy is Ryan Shermell. He's actually here in Schaumburg, United States. He used to have a specimen like that. Actually, he worked with the Celebensis and the Weberi, and just some really big mentors teaching me about the care and just the natural history of sailfins. And then again, I got to shout out Casey Schultz. She's just such an awesome person. She's so cool because she's not your typical hobbyist. When I talked to her, she's like, yeah, I had a bearded dragon. I thought they were cool. So I got a sailfin dragon after that. And then she just took off breeding sailfins. She also works with a bunch of the Aussie pythons, olives, aspadites, just a really unique individual and somebody that I really look up to. And like I said, I can't state what I know is just from me doing stuff. Like I have so many awesome friends and mentors, and that's why I have to shout them out like this, because I would not be the person I am today if it wasn't for the knowledge and time they gave me.
I mean, I will say this, man. I want to know more about it, and you better give me these names of these people after this episode. I need you to shoot me all the names. I need you to talk to them, let them know I'm coming at them in a good way, and we need to get them on the show because I want to know more about the species. I mean, overall, I know they're just like anything else, things have personalities, but the disposition or like the demeanor or attitude with these overall, what's it like?
From my experience, it's a look, don't touch. Sailfins are incredibly flighty. I have had more success trying to handle my wild caught water dragons than even some of the captive bred sailfins. They're touchy. They don't really want to be played with. Unfortunately, you see a lot of photos on social media of people holding these big sailfins. From what it sounds like is in Indonesia, they're just catching these adults and parading them around. So of course they're not going to be running because they're super stressed. And I think that gives American keepers, where our, keeping standards are much more up to date, that, I want to have a big 4-foot dragon to parade around and show off. And then they get that little baby, they try and handle it, and it dies from excessive stress. So again, I don't really need to handle my animals to get any joy out of them. That's why I really like sailfins, is they're just impressive. They're majestic. They're everything I love in a lizard, being arboreal, but somewhat aquatic. I mean, mostly arboreal. They don't need a huge aquatic section like, say, an alligator, because again, they poop in their water. So you kind of want to change that out frequently. But the point is that for me, nothing tops seeing an adult pair of sailfins basking side by side and in an enclosure. I mean, and I realize everybody wants.
What would be the minimal enclosure for adult pair, in your opinion, or what would you go with that?
So I'm not to be controversial here. Like water dragons, they're prone to what's called nose rub. So you keep them in a big enclosure with clear side. Like every sailfin I've seen at a zoo looks like garbage. They're missing toes, they're kept too dry, and their faces are just rubbed raw. And ironically, this was actually a method that I saw by both Scott Corning and John Steele, who was a former well-respected sailfin keeper and breeder. And like I said, my buddy Ryan Shermell actually housed his group of Celebensis this way, is we need to not look at an enclosure as a big display piece, but more or less as functionality for the animal. So instead of an 8-foot by 2-foot enclosure for a pair of adults, I might do a floor space of 4-foot by 4-foot, which again, to the average person, that's small, you're hurting your animal. It's the exact same square footage as that 8-foot cage. But now the animal can get 4 foot away from me, so I'm not working right next to it when I'm spraying and sliding that door open. And then they don't have, and I'm not trying to sound cruel here, but they have the space to move around, but it's not long enough to where once they start running, they're going to bash their face in. So 4-foot by 4-foot floor space, and then as tall as you can make it. Again, these guys spend a lot of their time up in the trees. They're going to feel much more secure when they're looking down on you. Casey Schultz's enclosures are 6 feet tall, and then she has them almost 2.5 feet off the ground. So when she's servicing these enclosures, that lizard is sitting almost 8 feet, 3 feet above her head. And hers are flawless animals. They're beautiful. Why? Because they feel confident. And if they do get worked up, they can't run far enough and work up the speed to bash in their face. The other thing, too, that I want to point out is minimalistic window viewing areas. And I do this for my water dragons, too. People think, oh, my gosh, it's cruel. You can't see your animals. I'm at school or I'm at work. The only time I really see and appreciate my animals is when I'm doing work, misting and feeding. So you can have like a little window to peek in and monitor them. But for the most part, like I said, my water dragon cages, the glass is about 90% covered up with just paper and tape. It'd be the same thing with Salfins. I know Scott Corning's setups is actually like a shade cloth, so you can't directly see in. He lives in Florida, so he actually has screen fronts with the shade cloth because his room is already 90% humidity in there. But again, for me in the Midwest, if I were to do it, I would do no screen sections, a small viewing area, and then like a big swing door. Because once the adults are comfortable with you, they're not going to try and sprint out on you like a monitor. You don't really need to reinforce the cage and make it crazy. They're not going to try and bust through a piece of plywood. It's just more about the functionality for that Salfin dragon. And like I said, everything that I've just said can be applied to water dragons just on a smaller scale because a water dragon doesn't get 3.5 feet long. So that's sort of what, again, I've learned from people. Again, don't take my word as law. I mainly do just a lot of research on the species. All of my work with Salfins has been at jobs and working at other people's collections, getting that experience to the most of my ability.
Okay, perfect. Awesome, man. Good shit. Would love to hit you with some hot seat questions if you're okay with that.
For sure.
Give me to your best to not explain anything. Just go ahead and serve me as they come. Are you ready for these hot seat questions?
Alrighty.
All right, here we go. Hot seat questions for the homie Alex coming in hot. Frozen thawed or live?
Frozen thawed.
A cut or no cut?
No cut.
Red chondro neo or yellow chondro neo?
Red.
Pre first shed meal or post first shed meal?
Post first shed meal.
Favorite lizard species?
Oh, any of the Salfins. If I had to, I can't pick a favorite amongst the 5.
No, you could say over any Salfin species. That's fine.
Yeah, I'm just genus Hydrosaurus. All 5 of them are fantastic.
Yay imports or boo imports?
Yay, but with some regulation. God damn it. Okay, yeah, just yay imports.
One reptile you would import today if you could. Any reptile.
Southern phenotype Hydrosaurus microlophus.
One reptile we should never import ever again.
Sulcata tortoises.
Yay sports or boo sports?
Oof. I don't want. I'll say yay.
Okay.
On a low. Professional bass fishing.
Professional.
Yeah, I know.
I like you. That was sick. I love that. That was hard. I believe you too. Professional bass fishing.
I was on my high school bass fishing team for 4 years. Like we competed at state levels.
That is so sick. I thought I had one of the sickest PE classes in high school. That was surf PE. But a fucking bass team in high school, that sounds sick as fuck.
We'd be up at I'd wake up at 4:30 on a Saturday to fish an 8-hour tournament, like on the chain of lakes here. It was fun.
All right. Big flexor or no flexor?
No flex.
Favorite book of all time?
Oh. Dang. Does it have to be? Are you talking like a fiction book or just
a book? Just a book that you love, like a book that you like. It could be anything.
I don't read a lot. I'll say one of my favorite books I've read recently was The Invisible Ark by Dave and Tracy Barker.
Nice. Yay alcohol or boo alcohol?
Boo alcohol. I don't drink that often.
Stefani thought you were drinking a fucking 40 of Old English in that cup just earlier, but
that was half and half iced tea. I love Arizona iced tea. Now this is water to replenish my caffeine.
Let's see. West Coast rap or East Coast rap?
I don't listen to rap.
Jesus Christ. Favorite genre of music?
Oh God, probably
you do
classic
like
rock.
Okay, respect. Thank you. Sounds good. Little word association. First thing to come to mind, conservation.
Wild caught animals.
First time ball python breeder.
Toxic community.
Instagram clout.
Ugh. I don't know. I guess I'm thinking yeah, I've got nothing for that.
Stuck shed.
Missed it.
Mites.
Prevent a mite.
FedEx shipping.
Ship your reptiles.
Instagram trolls.
Block them.
If you had to get rid of one platform forever, I mean forever, is it going to be Facebook or Instagram?
Oh,
It's a hard one.
Facebook.
Oh, you got a lot of homies on Facebook too. Respect.
I do, but some of the groups in Facebook are just full of radicalized degenerates that deserve to be wiped off the face of the earth.
Yo, Alex, we had, I want to say near up to 60 people at one point during the live. We have, and I didn't tell nobody to give you any likes. We have over 50 likes in the building. That means you had more than 100% view to watch ratio. What do you have to say to all your supporters out there, man? You had mad people in here showing you love and excited for this podcast. So for those people, what do you have to say to them?
Thanks for taking the time to listen to me. I know I don't have a ton to offer right now, but my hope is give me a couple of years and you'll see me working with some cool stuff that hopefully I can be producing and give back to all of y'all.
And I didn't mention, but next show would be, I mean, you do plan on going to Tinley, or what's going on with your show agendas this year?
Yeah, I should be at the Schaumburg July NARBC. I don't fly around much to shows. Usually NARBC is the big one. Maybe some of like the Show Me Snake shows that are local. But
Right.
Other than that, NARBC is pretty much my religious voyage.
All right, man. Well, listen, I can't wait to see you at the next voyage, which I'm sure it's going to happen here soon. I can't make it to Schaumburg, unfortunately. I'm so jam-packed that month with events, but I will be October Tinley.
Oh, yeah. I'll see you there.
Yeah, man. But listen, thank you so much, Alex. It's a wrap for my boy, Alex Meyer. Give it up for my boy, Alex Meyer. Ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Hey, have a good night, man. Thank you so much. This was an awesome episode. I'll talk to you afterwards. Thank you, bro.
For sure. Thanks for having me.
Later, buddy. Woo! What an amazing episode. What a fucking smart young man. Great. I took a lot from this, especially with the insect stuff, man. I need to get more dialed in. I'm not happy. I'm not satisfied. Yeah, I'm never satisfied. I always want to do better, man. But thank you to everyone who tapped in. Thank you to everyone who spent their Sunday evening with us. Again, thank you for coming through with my boy Alex. Thank you for all the likes. I appreciate all the support. If you happen to not hit the like button, it's not too late. Let's get those likes up even more for my boy Alex, because he definitely dropped a lot of his knowledge, a lot of his passion here on the show. And I also want you to drop a comment, not in the live chats here. Drop a comment. Let me know what you liked the most out of everything that Alex had to say on the show. And again, thank you for all the love and support. Be ready for tomorrow. My homegirl, Chantel, Pacific Rim Serpents, going down. New breeder on the block, 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. I do want to do a couple plugs before you guys dip out. I have something I need to attend to at 6 o'clock. But real quick, guys, do me a favor. If you have not already, I need you to head over to, well, you're already there at YouTube, but go ahead and do your boy a favor. Go over to the Snake Trap Sessions vlogs. Hit that subscribe button. Someone get me to 400, please. I'm one away from 400 subscribers. But more importantly, go watch the episode that I just dropped, the vlog I just dropped, visiting my homie Dennis. We just talked about Dennis on the episode. This man is so dialed in, 22 plus years experience at the Virginia Zoo. He breaks down bioactive stuff. He breaks down a bunch of different things, and he's being slept on. So let's not sleep on the homie Dennis no more. Go over, check out the vlog, hit that subscribe button, and then also make sure you guys go ahead and subscribe to Trap Talk Clips, where I drop past guests, all the sickest clips for my past guests onto this channel here. So if you could please go over to Trap Talk Clips and subscribe to this channel as well. Get me to that 100 subscribers. We should be well over 100 subscribers. I have over 100 Patreon members. That means not all my Patreon members aren't subscribed. I'm about to go in on the Zoom session right now. I'm just kidding. I love you guys. But listen, please do me a favor, go subscribe to those channels. And my last plug that I'm going to say, shout out to, we didn't talk a lot about conservation, which, I do want to talk about that moving forward more, especially when we bring Alex back on, because he's very dialed in with that. But I do have a set of friends, my friends Cody and Pia Bartolini are doing a lot of work right now over at the Reptile Preservation Institute. They're working on a new facility. So I never really, no shame to anyone's Patreon hustle out there. I never really stress or or ask anyone to join anyone's Patreon page other than mine. And I appreciate all my Patreon members. I love you guys. But please, man, if you guys don't mind, head over to the Reptile Preservation Institute, become a Patreon member of this page, because I'm telling you right now, it's going to an amazing cause. These two right there, like see Pia and Cody, I love these two so much, but they are doing mad work, very dedicated, very dialed in. I can tell you what right now, I mean, I look up to these two probably more than almost anyone when it comes to conservation in the hobby. So if you guys want to, listen, U.S. ARC is a lot. That's all. I mean, I feel like you can at least do that. But if you are out there and you're in a position where you could help people like Cody and Pia fucking get this facility built and whatnot, and anything helps, man, go become a Patreon member. You get special perks, special content too. If you guys see, there's all this amazing content that they don't release. This is all behind the scenes. So yeah, consider it. Go check it out. And then also, when you consider that, and once you join that, come join Trap Talk Patreon family. We're going to get tapped into all my Patreon members right now. We're going to start a Trap Talk Zoom session that starts in less than 6 minutes. So I got to get going. But again, guys, thank you for all the love and support. You guys are amazing. Oh, shit. Hold on. I am not going to not talk about this Thursday night. Where are all my venomous lovers out there? Where are all my hot lovers out there? I'm talking about the people that love the serious, real deal designer venomous snakes. Well, guess what? I have somebody who's highly respected in the venomous game. And I'm not talking about on a YouTube level. I'm talking about respected. Like my homies, Desiree, Steven, Andrew, all respect this guy. I met him through this guy, but I met him through them. But anyways, Kyle Vargas, this Thursday night, going down on Trap Talk, the Club King. Do me a favor, go on Instagram, go follow my boy Kyle on Instagram right now, the Club King. Go see what kind of fucking rattlesnakes this guy has, breeds, works with. It's amazing. Just be ready. It's going to go down. Coolest reptile podcast in the world. And shout out to my boy Alex for having such an amazing episode. Again, thank you for all the love and support. Trappers, I'll see you right now at the Trap Talk Zoom session, but I'm out.